Good evening, it's Natalie with another video in my Esther room. So tonight I got some thoughts together and I decided I want to do the video about the authenticity of love, what we look for when we're looking into a relationship, into marriage, and what is the most challenging part of a relationship when people are having the hardest time. What are the factors that affects most couple, and it's very interesting that many times when couples come into therapy, first of all, it's been after a long time that they had friction and tension between them. Usually with everything else in life, we try to go sooner than later, whether it's our car, whether it's the plumbing, whether it's things around the house, whether it's the medical situation. But for some reason, we think and assume, people assume that in marriage, it's going to figure it out. It's going to get sorted out. It's just going to come and, kind of like make sense on its own. And it doesn't really work like that. And by the time the person comes into therapy, like the dentist always says, why did you wait so long? Why did you wait so long? Now, God forbid, I have to do this and do that. If you would have come sooner, there would be so many things I would do about it. And again, it's still never too late. It's always better to go than not go. But it's interesting because we have an assumption that marriage is just going to unfold and figure its way out, that this chemical reaction, affection, and attention that a man and a woman have towards each other in the beginning of their courtship and meeting, it's going to like work out its way like love at first sight. It's like this affectionate love is blind, that attraction is going to make it work itself out, which doesn't really work that way. And Helen Fisher has done research about it, about the brain reaction, and they've done MRI about how that exciting love at first sight chemical reaction that couples have, usually over time it wears off. And that chemical reaction, that excessive release of serotonin and dopamine, and that pleasure reaction that fires in the brain, it's no different than like someone who is almost like using the drug cocaine. So the people become so caught up in the momentum of that attraction that they see no logic. They just see the person they're dating, which is ironic enough, the same story as we read in Genesis, that it says when God separated Adam and Eve, he put them into this sleep, into this trance that's affecting us till this day, thousands of years later. It's almost like like love at first sight. It's this trance, like the people go into a trance, but if you don't maintain it, it's not going to be there. Like love is something that needs to be maintained, or else it's going to disappear. Relationship and love in a marriage needs to be maintained, or else it's going to be gone. So the interesting thing is that we have this assumption that because the love was there in the beginning, it's going to keep the marriage going. And we forget that humans are the most dependent species in the animal kingdom. Even from infancy, animals that get four-legged animals that get pregnant with their babies, the minute the baby animal is born, whether it's a horse, a camel, a donkey, a giraffe, an elephant, the minute it's born, it shakes around, gets up, and walks. Whereas an infant cannot start walking until one whole year of their life. They have to be taught and worked with to be able to take milk in, like to be breastfed. They have to be comforted to be able to go to sleep. There's so many things that the baby needs to be taught to be able to become self-sufficient. It takes a whole year for the baby to just be able to even take their first step. And with infants, there are things that if they don't get exposed to, they'll never learn to do. Unlike the mammals, right? The animal kingdom, the minute they're born, they're able to go on. Whereas humans, it's the exposure of it that's going to help them be able to do it. You leave an infant on the bed and not encourage it to walk, it won't walk. You leave a baby in the dark room and don't expose it to light, leave it in the cave, it will become blind. Dr. Gabor Mate did a talk about that. The baby won't be able to see if you don't give it light, right? So the human brain, based on the exposure, it develops, right? So emotional intimacy is also part of that. So if you don't have exposure to it, if you don't have exposure to that relationship and connection, it will have a much harder time maintaining it. And that is the same thing in a relationship. So when you have these two individuals, right, that call it love, call it, whatever it is that brought them together, now when that high wears off, what's bringing them together? So there's also another factor. Is it love or is it their insecurity that brought them together? Do they even have a healthy meaning of what love is? If you think love is your partner being responsible to make you happy, make you feel loved, valuable, make you feel worthwhile, never leave you alone, always be there for you, be your best friend, your cousin, your friend, and the list goes on and on. How truthful is that? Is that even healthy? Who even told you that that's what love is? A healthy, loving relationship is where two complete, content people come together and they only add on to each other's life. If you're going into marriage hoping that it's going to heal you from your childhood wound, it's only going to damage you more. It's not going to help you because all of your problems are going to come with you. And what we were exposed to growing up as children really impacts our outlook and understanding of what we're seeking in a relationship. And this has nothing to do with blaming, it's just about the awareness of what was I exposed to and what am I looking for. The awareness of that can be really, really tremendous help for us. And one thing we need to understand is that one of the most challenging experiences that leads into insecure love, kind of, versus healthy love, is when a child was raised in doubt. There was not consistency, not no peace in the home, and there were always fear of like what's going to be next, the next argument, and not feeling peaceful. So there's always that doubt. Then the experience of not feeling lovable, that I'm not lovable because I'm not getting that sensation, that hug, that, and a lot of research now shows that neglect, it's not just about physical neglect of not being fed. It's about what if the mother was so stressed and anxious that couldn't connect. So, like I said in the beginning, it's all about what you get exposed to into early infancy. So, that healthy relationship of attachment, the eye contact, the lovingness, the smile, that exposure develops your frontal cortex, right? Which has to do with your emotional intelligence. What if the child didn't have that? And the sensation of being valuable and worth it. That the opposite of it will be that experience of worthlessness. So, in the beginning, when the two people make that attraction towards each other, if it comes from an unhealthy, insecure state, right? After the excitement and the high wears off, then the connection becomes, the fog goes away and the reality comes, then some tensions can come up. So if the couple is emotionally mature enough to look within them to see what it's doing with them, a lot of healing can happen. But if the pain is so much, if the wound is so much that you go into constant attack and being defensive, then it's going to be very hard to resolve it. When your partner comes over and says, listen, when you spoke with me with that way, it made me uncomfortable. And the other one says, well, you're so sensitive, you always take it personal. And like they start rivalry against each other instead of healing. So the key factor is in any relationship you're in, you have to first get to a point of wanting to heal yourself. Get to know yourself, get to know your triggers, get to know what bothers you, get to know what makes you uncomfortable, and first and foremost, get comfortable with also spending time with yourself, by yourself, in your own company and be okay with that, because that is the key of healing. When you get to a point where you yourself can tolerate all of yourself. Stay tuned for the part two. Thank you so much for watching.